think there are some things that as adults we should let go of. Like the notion that shower sex is even like possible. Like that's... What are we doing? Who are we trying to impress? It's us. We know what we're capable of. And we know exactly how slippery a tub is. Trying to have shower sex is right up there with trying to have sex on tightrope. You just over here. Hoping you gonna slip and accidentally do something good. Whoever's idea this was is the devil, because what possessed us? What video did we watch where we're like, I can do that too? It's never a good idea, ever. Even if you got the bath mat. Because what people don't tell you about that tub mat, it's got little suction cups at the bottom, but with enough pressure, it will slip right off. And so you standing on it, believing in it. Next thing you know, you wake up concussed. That's one of my greatest fears, to have some sort of, be trying to smash and get some sort of energy that, like, I can do it. And then injure myself and give her the ick for the rest of life. I think if you fall during shower sex, the other person gets an automatic divorce if they want one, because it's already not sexy in the shower. You think you're gonna fall sexy too? It won't happen. One foot gonna go this way, the other foot gonna go that way. You gonna grab the towel rack. Fighting for your life right now. Naked, fighting for your life. Over here swinging legs. I've slipped in the shower by myself and I've screamed every time. Imagine now, we in the shower together. I'm trying to lay down some pipe, all right? And then behind you, you hear, whoa! If I fall during shower sex, I better die. Because the last thing I need is to try to pick myself up with a black eye from hitting my face just right. Going like, you want to try again? Over here concussed. There's just certain things we gotta stop. We gotta let go of. You know? We'd be happier for it. Because everybody want to tell you about, come back from the honeymoon and give you all the tea, all the sexcapades, young, newlyweds, still spry, still got good knees, good hips. Because we don't talk about the small muscles. Okay, I once tore my right glute trying to get out of the shower. You ever lost your right ass before? It changed everything. I had to sit on a donut. Do you know what it's like to be in your early 20s sitting on a donut? People look at you like something really wrong. People look at you like you barely hanging on. It's devastating. And it was just off of a random movement, I was getting out of the shower and just a little oh, you know what I mean? And at first I didn't think anything of it. Got out of the shower, dried off and everything. And then I went to sit down on the bed. I was like, uh-oh. I genuinely could not bend past here. Every night when I went to bed, I just had to fall into bed. Couldn't even get comfortable. I had to get my roommate to lift the covers and let me fall. And then he would cover me up. And I would just be like that until he came and got me. These were horrible circumstances. There was one day, we used to get up around the same time to go to work, and then one day he overslept. I had to scream. I had to scream for him to come get me. This man waking up, realize he late. I hear him in the other room, oh shit, and then like grabbing. I hear all the movements. I hear all the clamoring. He's putting his clothes on and everything. And I'm like, hey, hey. Heard the door close. I was like, guess I got to call in today. Don't sleep on the small muscles. Okay, take good care of yourself. No? Don't let somebody pressure you into shower sex you know you're not capable of. It'll even happen where maybe somebody texting, something, maybe doing a little sexting, right? I like to keep my sexting grounded. Let's not talk about stuff we know is never gonna happen. If you bring up shower sex to me while we are sexting, I will block you. I have no problem doing it. What a weird thing to stand on. No, she cute, but she brought up tubs. I couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. She had to go. I had to kick her to the curb, all right? Anything to do with porcelain, that's too freaky for me. I don't like that. I don't know how you were raised, but I'm a Christian. Do y'all know like a scary kid? Like you can't bring it up because they're like your friend's kid, but you don't want to be left alone with them. Because as soon as everybody leave the room, they look at you, but they can't just look at you. They look at you with their whole body. My friend, okay, so I have a friend who he had a kid, like what, 6, 7 years ago. His kid's gotta be about 6 or 7, and anytime I go over to their house, kid will be playing or something. And now it's at least at the point that the kid can play video games or something like that. But even when he was just playing with blocks and stuff, my friend would leave the room to go get something. And then the kid would just look at me, but he wouldn't just look at me with his eyes, he'd look at me with his whole body. He would just turn and I was like... And this is what scared me about that, right? Okay, so when I was alone with the kid and he'd be playing with the blocks, he'd be sitting, flipping the blocks and everything and knocking them over, building them up, knocking them over, being all cute at everything. And then my friend would leave the room and he wouldn't just turn, he wouldn't just turn on his little butt or something to look at me. He would stand up and turn. But then when his parents came back in, he'd sit back down like he didn't know how to stand. And that was... very freaky, because I would tell them, I'm like, hey, is he standing up and running around and stuff? And they're like, not yet. So now I know I've been left alone with a demon, because why are you only walking to scare me, Didn't matter what it was. As soon as they walked out of the room, he'd pop up. Wouldn't even talk baby to me, just be like, I don't know what he wants. There was one time I was at their house and he was in front of the TV, and then I went to the kitchen and they were, I don't know where they were, but then out of nowhere I turned in the kitchen and he's standing at the kitchen door, and I'm not gonna lie, I shouldn't even admit this, but just out of panic I almost punted that kid. I almost imagine, just please, imagine for me that you going around the house just doing your regular thing, right? And then out of nowhere, a child that no one thinks can walk is just standing behind you. I was like, what in the boss baby is happening right now? I'm very excited to see Dune 2. Because I think it's going to be a phenomenal movie. A lot of people like Dune, and I haven't heard anyone who saw Dune 2 have a bad thing to say about it. And I know it's a good movie because it's a good story. And I know it's a good story because growing up, it was the only time that I ever saw a dumb kid with a thick book. Dune is very thick. And they were always a bookmark deep into that book. Deeper than you can get in the Bible. Like the Dune might have more pages now that I think about it. And they would always finish it. I'm like, this must be an incredible story, you know? As adults, I think that we see the world in an objective way. Because we're old enough now to have enough discernment to pull information in and decide how we feel about it, right? But I don't think that we see the world objectively, because I think by the time you're an adult, it's not that it's too late, but just too much has happened. You got too many biases, you have so much trauma, you have a lens you see the world through. That's why the only people who I think see the world the way it is are kids. Because they don't have all those filters, there's no like veil yet. That's why they take things so literally. You know? They'll be like, that's what you said, that must be what it is, right? Like when I was growing up, when I was learning to read, I was in class with a kid who misunderstood the meaning of sound it out, right? So instead of going ch, 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 chair, right? He would go, ooh! Chair. And that kid finished Dune. All right. I can't even judge him though, because I did the same thing in a different way. You know, when I was little, I played t-ball for a little while, and when we were playing t-ball, you know, coach, parents, everybody would say, keep your eye on the ball. Keep your eye on the ball, right? And I took it literally. Keep your eye on the ball. Now, we didn't have a big league of kids, and so sometimes we had to play the same team a couple times in one year, right? And there was one kid that really shouldn't have been playing. I don't know how many times he had been held back, but this was an adult. This was... You know that thing they talk about people always trying to do in the World Series? They were doing it in my local t-ball league, okay? This kid looked like he had a full-time job, and he would come up to the plate, and he was so good. Like, on top of being big, he was good. And, you know, T would be right here, the ball would be right here, and he always managed to, like, crack the ball, not just, like, over, not just up, but, like, up, like really, like truly under to pop it up into the air, right? And I remember one time he did it. One time you could hear it. Hear the pop off that metal bat and the ball flying into the air. And I was keeping my eye on the ball. And the ball looked like it was gonna go into space. It got hard to keep my eye on the ball for a second, because like the clouds are white, the ball is white, and the ball is in the clouds. And then it starts to come down a little bit. I'm like, oh, I see it, okay. And I keep my eye on the ball. And then it's getting closer. But I keep my eye on the ball. And then it gets so close, I'm a little concerned, but like my coaches and my parents have been telling me, I keep my eye on the ball. And then the ball is in my eye. No one ever said catch the ball. They said keep your eye on the ball was the most important thing, and that's what I did. So then I crash to the ground, and he gets a home run because I'm laying next to the ball. Mira, 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 mira.
You have seen him everywhere, but tonight you are seeing him live. Please put your hands together for Josh Johnson.
Sometimes I find myself falling down whole rabbit holes online of things, stories and stuff. And there's a case, there's a trial. It just ended. And I think it may qualify for trial of the century. I know that's premature to say, but I don't know. I think it's pretty incredible. The trial of Young Thug just ended. Now, if you don't know who Young Thug is, he's a rapper. It's not a dog whistle this time, all right? Young Thug is a rapper that was on trial in Fulton County in Georgia, right? Basically, the state's case, what they were alleging was that he took all of the money that he made from music and he funneled it through and to a gang called YSL, a gang that he was supposedly the leader of, right? And that's the state's case. And the judge in the case looked exhausted. I've never seen a judge act like this before. Every time the court camera cut to her, her head was in her hands. And I'm not gonna act like I know the law, okay? My understanding of the law sort of begins and ends with Law and Order SVU, all right? So I know you can sustain, and you can object. I've never heard a judge be like, you can't do that. She said it a lot. And now the prosecution in the case, the prosecutor had given out a lot of plea deals. Ton of plea deals. More plea deals than I thought you could give out. I didn't have a number in my head, but this felt like an egregious amount of plea deals. It just felt like she was going to the hood like, you get a plea deal, you get a plea deal, you get a plea deal, you get a plea. She was basically giving a plea deal to everybody in Georgia but Young Thug, right? And she was giving these plea deals in return for their cooperation, their testimony that she would use to piece by piece paint the bigger picture that the state was alleging that Young Thug's the leader of YSL. Everything they do is by his direction. All his money goes through and to them, right? And the only problem is the prosecutor in this case gave plea deals to some of the least helpful people in human history, all right? I've never seen people less helpful than this. It was astoundingly unhelpful. I was helping my friend move one time. And he and I had to move a pool table, just us, downstairs. And our third friend was there at the bottom of the stairs just watching. And even he was more helpful than anyone that the prosecutor gave a plea deal to in this case. At least he could be like, watch your step, something. I'm gonna tell you about some of the testimony. I'm gonna need you to be patient with me because a lot of the dudes testified in this trial are going by their rapper name and they haven't made it yet. So I don't know why it's spelled like that. I don't know how to pronounce it. Just, I'm gonna say he for short, all right? There's one dude that was on the stand, right? And prosecutor asked him a very specific question, a very specific reason. She goes, did Young Thug have an issue with Rich Homie Quan bringing his friend to the party, right? Now, Rich Homie Quan is also a rapper who has sadly passed away. But his friend, to the best of my knowledge, allegedly, is a gang member, right? This whole question is to paint Young Thug as a leader of a gang. That's why he would have a problem with a different gang member coming to his party, right? So the prosecutor asked, did Young Thug have an issue with Rich Homie Quan bringing his friend to the party? And then this guy on the stand goes, Thug, did you have an issue with Rich Homie Quan? Never in the history of court have I seen someone ask a question by the prosecution and then go, I'll just go to the source. And so then the prosecutor goes, no, I'm asking you. Did Young Thug have an issue with Rich Homie Quan bringing his friend to the party, all right? And then this guy goes, I'm not Young Thug, so I don't know. Moments later, the prosecutor's asking question after question after question, all alleging the same thing, all to the same end, right? And this dude, he's not being combative. He's not even being rude. He's just not being helpful. And so then the prosecutor pulls up, I don't know if she put up it exactly, but basically references his plea deal where she goes, I have right here you answering questions definitively that I'm asking you right now. And then this guy on the stand goes, y'all wrote that, I just signed it. Never in the history of court, at least that I know of, and it's like, you know, the internet especially was of two minds, because it was like people could not decide if these were like some of the dumbest people who had ever lived or legal masterminds. Because basically what this dude is saying in open court, right, is, look, you were about to give me how many years? I didn't want to do how many years, and you told me if I signed the paper, I wouldn't do how many years, right? So I signed the paper, but I'm not about to perjure myself. This dude was supposed to be on the stand for 3 hours. 3 days later. The prosecution is asking question after question after question, all to the same end, right? And, you know, references again. Look, I understand that we typed it up, but what is in this is based off of what you said to the police. This is based off of testimony you gave during interrogation. And he was like, yeah, but if you gave it to me to type up, it would say something different than what you have right there, right now. Even the prosecutor was like, oh. Question after question after question after question. And finally, this dude, he doesn't snap exactly. He doesn't lose it, right? I think he just gets exhausted. And finally he says, look, I'll tell you what I told the police. I'll say anything. Like, this is a witness for the prosecution. It's absolutely insane. The whole case is insane because you even look at the fact that the case had 3 different judges. Yeah, got passed off like a bad baton. First judge was Judge, I don't know how to pronounce his name. I think it's Glanville, yeah. And this judge, he does seem to suck. Like, he does. But he also had to put up with some stuff, too, because there were jurors that were fully out of pocket during this case. Just a couple of examples. There was one juror that got picked. It already took nearly a year, by the way, to pick a jury. which is insane. And then after they pick the jury, there's one juror that during the trial has started, and I think they just went to the Dominican Republic. Deputies got sent to their house, were knocking on the door and everything, and then they got back, and they had to appear in court, and the judge was like, you have jury duty, you have to be here to be on the jury. And they were like, every day? That sounds wildly inconvenient. Then the judge was ready to, hold this jury in contempt and was basically giving them an out because this judge in particular loved contempt. He had a lot of contempt. The entire trial full of contempt. And gave the juror a way out. He was like, look, I could send you to jail, I could fine you, but what I'm gonna have you do instead is write me a 30-page paper on the importance of being a juror. This dude sentenced her to APA style. He sentenced her to citing sources. You couldn't see his face in the moment, but even Thug was like, damn. That's cruel and unusual. I've never heard of that before. There was another juror that I admittedly, I don't even know what happened with this person, but I know that they got in trouble for for live streaming the case. Which is extra crazy because it was being live streamed. Like if you had been watching at home, you would just see them sit with the jury like. You risk jail time for an extra angle. We are. Judge Glanville, oof. There was a lot of plea deals being given out the entire case, like I said before. And some of the things that were happening was, this is me guessing, but there were people that were not being super forthcoming, that they probably didn't necessarily have to be, but they were in some sort of trouble. And so the plea deal was just given just as an extra, it's okay, you can talk, we just need to get this guy, right? And even with that, there were still people that didn't quite want to testify. And then there were people that were being so difficult, state's witnesses who were being so difficult that the state just could not get anywhere, And there was one person, star witness. Basically, the prosecution needed a through line. They needed something that would connect everything. And so they laid a lot of it on one person in particular. Okay? And they needed his testimony so bad that they pretty much gave him immunity on the stand. I didn't even know you could do that. It sounds made up. It sounds fake. I feel like he thought it was fake too, because he was like, immunity on, so if I say something on the stand, answering one of your questions, and it implicates Thug, but it also implicates me, I'm okay? Yeah, you're okay, you have immunity. Immunity on the stand, you're gonna be good. You sure? Yeah, you're gonna be good. Okay, I'm not even joking. He goes, okay. Okay, but what if it's federal? And I love that. I love a good haggle. I love okay, I hear immunity, but can I get a federal? Can I get some federal? Federal, please. Can I get a little federal? Oh, it's beautiful. This dude gets all the stab, and you can tell he doesn't trust it. You can tell he's like, nah, they're up to something. Doesn't want to answer any questions, but we told you have immunity. All right. Basically compelling this man to testify, dangling immunity in his face. Sits on the stand. First question from a prosecutor. How old are you? And he goes, grown. And the prosecutor's like, what do you mean by grown? It's like, I'm an adult. Prosecutor is like, okay, seeing as you're an adult, how many years is that? And then he goes, looks over at the judge. I plead the fifth. Truly incredible work. Truly phenomenal, They would be asking him lots of questions, question after question. And it was getting frustrating for the prosecution. It was getting frustrating for the judge because, look, maybe I'm doing my best to be as fair as possible. But when you watch a case like this, it does just seem like if you're a defendant, you're up against two parties. You're up against the prosecution and you're up against the judge because everything in this case kept giving the prosecution chances, even when they would mess up. Because once again, they're not being given a lot with testimony, but there are things that they have in hard evidence. They're just not bringing them all together to make it cohesive, right? And then this star witness's testimony is not helping. So then, can't stress this enough, you cannot do this. Judge Glanville supposedly has a secret meeting with the witness and the prosecution, but not Young Thug's lawyers, right? It's something in Latin that I don't know how to pronounce, but you're not supposed to do it. And basically, in this meeting, this witness is then threatened with the dangled immunity and everything. Oh, we'll charge you for this. We'll hold you in contempt for 2 years. We'll put you in jail. All this stuff, unless you start testifying, unless you start answering questions to the best of your ability. I don't want to hear any more of this pleading of the fifth, all that stuff, right? And so then they go back to court, and he's answering questions so well that the defense gets suspicious. Defense is like, what happened between now and lunch? All of a sudden, he remembers everything. He remembered what color everybody was wearing. And then it comes to the defense lawyer's attention that there was this secret meeting. And so he addresses it in court, in front of the judge, to the judge. He goes, Your Honor, I've heard some distressing news that there was a secret meeting with you, the prosecution, and the witness. My client and I were not privy to. I don't know what was discussed. This person's acting different now. What is this? And the judge, instead of denying it, instead of being like, that's a horrible accusation, that's not true at all, the judge goes, who told you that? And you can look at it because it was live streamed. You can look, who told you that? And he's like, Your Honor, don't worry about who told me that. That's the least of my concern. It's who told me that. The meeting is my concern. He's like, no, I need to know. This is very distressing. I need to know who told you that. And he's like, Your Honor, it doesn't matter who told me that. Is that true? Like, did that happen? Who told you that? Who told you that? Who told you that? Who told you that? Over and over and over. And it's just wild that, like, in a RICO case involving supposed gang members, that the judge is like, who snitched? Nah, for real, who snitched? Huh? Like, hey, I need you to come up out them names. Who snitched? Ain't nobody play with. Look, I will bust everybody in here right now. Who snitched? And Doug's lawyer is like, no, look, I'm not gonna tell you, all right? I'm not gonna tell you how I came upon this knowledge. I'm just asking you if this happened. I'm asking you, maybe even for a mistrial. Like, how could this happen? He goes, who told you? Who told you? I'm gonna give you 5 minutes to tell me who told you. And Doug's lawyer is like, I don't need 5 minutes. I'm not gonna tell you. That should be the least of your concern. Like, is this true? And he's like, I'm gonna hold you in contempt if you don't tell me. I will put you in jail if you don't tell me. You will go to jail if you do not tell me. It's like, look, I'm not going to tell you. You can put me in jail, but the problem is the meeting. The problem isn't who told me, right? And so then the judge does it. He holds Doug's lawyer in contempt, which is pretty terrifying. You know? This judge is basically going over and over again. Who snitched? Who snitched? I can't stand a snitch. And you know... And you couldn't see Thug's face in the moment, but he had to have been like, I know, right? And so then Glanville does it. He holds Thug's lawyer in contempt. And, you know, the Bar Association hears about it. And they show up to back Thug's lawyer up because that's terrifying. That's terrifying if a judge does something, doesn't even bother denying it, and then holds you in contempt for asking. That's a scary court system. You know what I mean? Because that's one of those things, if it can happen to anybody, it can happen to anybody. Like, I know that it's a case involving hip hop, involving like gang culture, whatever, but that particular thing, that could happen to anybody, I promise you. That's very scary, you know? And so the Bar Association shows up to back this dude up, and it looks like his case is going to be heard, and probably the contempt is going to be thrown out. But basically, they tell Glanville, it's like, there's no way you're impartial. If you're trying this hard, there's no way you're willing to just let the facts play out. And so Glanville has to recuse himself from the case. And one of the things about recusing yourself, it doesn't undo damage. The case just goes on, you know? So there's still this like contempt hanging over Thug's lawyer's head and stuff. And then they move on to the next judge, and the next judge was the judge for a day. I'm not a judge, and I don't know how judges get cases and stuff. Apparently this case was just given to her randomly and everything, and then she got the case and she was immediately like, hey, y'all, I can't. And so many people were like, why? What's the problem? Don't worry about me. I can't right now. And so then the case goes to the third judge. You know, the judge just, that judge. The case goes to her, and she does her best. But it's very difficult. It's very difficult because there are things happening in the case that should just never happen. They actually had an officer come in who was, I guess you could almost call him a specialist in RICO cases through his police work, right? And even he made a mistake on the stand that had the defense asking for a mistrial because basically the state handled the case so poorly, so messy, just so confusing, right? That the defense would be asking for a mistrial consistently. They were asking for a mistrial the way that you act when you got 2 cards left in Uno. Anybody do anything, you're like, oh. Defense would call for a mistrial nonstop. That's a mistrial right there, Your Honor. He just sneezed. That's a mistrial. He gonna get everybody sick. Because this witness on the stand, his testimony, I'm pretty sure had to be thrown out because even though he's an expert in RICO and everything, it was 2 things were revealed that were pretty distressing. One, it's a RICO case, so they're trying to get everybody on everybody's crimes, but they never bothered to really look at the financial records of Thug. Which is pretty insane if you're telling me that all the money he makes, he runs through and to a gang. And you didn't bother to check a Chase statement or anything? That's wild. And then, while this officer is giving testimony, he makes a mistake that obviously wouldn't be called out by the prosecution, but does not get called immediately. And then the defense hears it, and then they're like, this is crazy. We can't allow it. Basically, he references past convictions as part of a testimony to what this person would have done in this case. And you can't do that. You got to judge it by the merits of the evidence you have in front of you about what happened right now, right? And at one point, the judge loses it. She storms out. The judge goes, I can't take it anymore. She hadn't even been the judge the whole time, but she was like, this is insanity. And you couldn't see his face, but you could imagine Thug being like, I know, right? Like, and so she almost grants a mistrial. There's a mistrial with prejudice and mistrial without prejudice. Mistrial with prejudice is basically don't even bring it up again. Mistrial without prejudice is like, okay, you didn't make the best case or something happened or a bunch of jurors went to the Dominican Republic, so like we can try it again later.
And so, the judge at one point has had it with the prosecution and is giving like a full-on. You just so rarely hear people talk to like this on a live stream that aren't on a Zoom call at home. Like this, she was just like, she was looking at the prosecution and she was at her wit's end and she was like, I don't know what to say to you. Like, I don't know, with the years of experience that you have, I don't know if you were willfully trying this case as badly as possible or if you were just so unorganized that you can't seem to string a coherent thought together on how 2 things are related. And we've heard testimony. There are people that don't show up. We're leaving at 4:25. Like, what is happening? And the whole time, prosecution is like, oh. You ever just take your talking to because you're like, yeah, it's pretty bad. Yeah, and like the prosecutor had the same nod that dudes have on the street when they getting yelled at on Valentine's Day. It's just like, just go ahead and nod and accept that you've messed up. It was so bad. And it'd be thing after thing after thing, whether it was jurors, whether it was judges, whether it was just wild testimony. There were people so uncooperative, right? Like there was one point where they showed this guy a picture, right? And it's a picture of him and Thug and 2 other people. Apparently with the person, I don't know, I didn't see the picture, but apparently with the person who was murdered, right? because that's one of the charges. There's drug trafficking, there's like gun running, there's all this stuff, but there's also a murder, right? And when it comes to the murder, that's one of the big ones, because they're alleging that Thug paid for the getaway car, right? And so once again, not checking his financial record seems like an oversight. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just saying. And they show a picture, right, with all these people to someone on the stand. And they're like, do you recognize anyone in this picture? And he's like, I see me. Okay, fair enough. Even when it came to start with this, there was one time where they simply asked this dude, when did you meet Young Thug? And he was like, before I went to jail. And just for the sake of clarity, the prosecutor tried to clarify, which time before you went to jail? And he just goes, you're right. And I don't know how you handle this sort of thing, because this ended up being the longest trial in Georgia's history. Also, one of the most expensive, if not the most expensive, because I guess plea deals cost a lot of money. And it gets so bad that every day, defense is like, hey, mistrial's still an option. You want to hit it with a little mistrial? We can mistrial. But then, you know, the prosecution would do something that would kind of warrant a little bit of a mistrial. Like there was even one point where they had someone on the stand read a caption from an Instagram post. And this caption had been poured over because basically through the hashtags, what a lot was being alleged, because, you know, whenever there's letters, whenever there's numbers, it could have no meaning, or it could have double meaning, or it could mean exactly what the prosecution wants it to mean. It could mean what the defense wants it to mean. And so they were arguing about this one picture over and over again before they would let the person just read it out loud to the jury, right? Because then I don't know if it's a gang, and I don't know if that was what the prosecution was alleging, but there was one point where the prosecutor was asking someone on the stand about a series of numbers, right? And a lot of people will sort of rep their area code. That's just a common thing throughout America, right? Exactly. That one, that's one of those things. It's like it's so unifying. Everyone does it. Like sometimes you just can't help it. Yeah. But this is my thing. Dude on the stand, prosecutor asked him, "What's 374?" And he was like, "Numbers." Maybe it's a gang, maybe it's not. I have no idea, right? But basically, there's this one picture that's being poured over and over again, and this was the straw that sort of broke everything, right? Because they made agreements, and they had even redacted the picture so that only what would be read was what the prosecution and defense agreed on based off of the evidence that they were both showing, right? But then when they actually gave the picture to the person on the stand, nothing was redacted. And the prosecutor had them read everything. And so then the defense is like, Your Honor. I've never heard a lawyer have to like go, Your Honor, kind of like, Mom, like. But this was it, Your Honor. We just went over the thing. Why would Shaw? And sure enough, Judge agreed. Judge was like, look, I gotta do something else with my life too. Like, it's just, it can't just be this. And the judge said an interesting thing, and like I said, I know a little bit about the law, most of it, what not to do from this case. But the judge says something where she's like, I'm basically trying to salvage something here because I don't want an entire jury's 11 months to be wasted. I don't want, which to me is a little weird. Their time's already been wasted. Like, this is about seeing if someone did or didn't do something. You know? And so that statement was said, but then, judge turns to the defense and goes, I'm not gonna grant you a mistrial with prejudice, but would you like a mistrial without prejudice? And defense was like, yup. And then she was like, I'm inclined to give it to you because this whole thing, this right here, no. No. And so then, they get to plea dealing a bunch of people day after day after day. And then they actually go to Thug and they're like, look, you're facing like 25, 40 years for all the things that we are alleging, right? But we'll give you probation, right? We'll give you probation if you just admit that you are the leader of YSL, a gang where you take all the money and you funnel it through into the gang and everything they do is at your direction. Like if you'll just say that, probation, you'll be good to go, right? And then Thug says, no, I'm not just gonna accept. You came to me to make your case for you. You know what I mean? No. And that's a very, I don't know, to me, that's a very, brave thing. I don't even fully understand all of the conditions around the sentence that he actually got, but that was what he was initially presented with. And he said no. And then the state said, okay, we're gonna make sure that you do 25 years. And that doesn't sit right with me. And it obviously didn't sit right with his defense attorney. His defense attorney brought it up when the judge was about to make a decision. Basically, he says, Your Honor, the state came to us and they said he could do probation if he signs this piece of paper, or he could do 25 years if he doesn't. And I'm just kind of curious why the state would allow someone that they're so sure is a racketeering, drug peddling murderer to go free with probation if they're sure, right? And that he'll do 25 years if he doesn't say what they're so sure of. And the judge was like, good point. That is very hard to argue against. And then the judge granted Thug probation and, went home. And there are some people that are like, man, if he could have just stuck it out a little bit longer, seen the trial to its end, there's no way he would have been convicted. The defense was ruining the state, just at every turn. And it was mostly the state tripping over themselves, right? And I get it, though. That dude sat in jail without bond. Dude was in jail for 2 years. He was in jail for a year while they picked a jury. He was in jail the entire trial, And And every once in a while, don't get me wrong, every once in a while, Thug would also laugh. Because, like, he was spacing a lot of time, but every once in a while, he'd also be like, how did we get here? This seems... Far be it for me to say, I'm just a rapper, but as far as the law goes... But what? I don't know. I don't know. I get it. I get somebody tells you, hey, you just do 3 more months, you'll go free forever. Maybe. That's scary, you know? And it's also scary that, like, that the state needed it this bad. That a lot of cases come down to reputation over justice. You couldn't just take the L, right? It's like, no, you will die in prison for me to not look bad. That's terrifying, you know? And I know it feels like it can't happen. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't rap, but I could see myself in a bad situation. You know, because it kind of begs the question, you know, did this person get away with a bunch of stuff, or did the state just jam someone up for 2 years? You know, thanks. But that's my thing. It's like I don't even know, and I'm obviously not Thug. You know, I hope that everybody can like move on in the most prosperous way possible. I really do. Everybody that testified, everybody. I wish the best for everyone. I really do. I just can't seem to think there's a level of peace you have to attain that I don't know if I have. Because if someone accused me of being this like drug running, you know, murderer, this horrible person, like this that did all these things, and they were willing to put me in jail forever with a bad case that they didn't have enough evidence for. And then they were just like, you can go if you just sign it. I think it would make me mad enough to kill someone. But that's just me.
Thank you for coming out on this exceptionally hot summer. This is genuinely crazy. This is like, this it's bad. It's bad. Like, when you walk outside, you don't even appreciate the sunlight. You know what I mean? It's beautiful out, and you're like, oh, God. This is the type of weather where you're like, Greta was right. We might be doomed. We should have been listening when she was sailing, or whatever the first thing she said was. This is really bad. This is the type of weather where it's so hot you start getting weird offers. Like, you go outside and there's just somebody standing on the corner like, hey, you give me $1 and I let you sit on my ice. I don't see any ice out here, sir. Trust me, there's ice. There's a bag behind you. Oh, it's also tough because I feel like it changes relationships too, you know? Like, it's so hot, somebody could live so close, but the test of love is which one's leaving their apartment. You know what I mean? You know? You'll live next to somebody a 15-minute walk away, but it'll be like, I could die. I can't be doing that just out willy-nilly just for you to see me. We can FaceTime, all right? Like, I feel like even the way people are sexting must be different, you know? You're just texting somebody, middle of the day, like, hey, I got that AC. Oh no, it's not a window unit, babe. We doing central over here. Now come through and get chilly, baby. It's like weirdly still sexual, but it's all cooling related. Like, I got popsicles if you want. If you're feeling freaky, we could both just sit in front of the open fridge door. No, I was in Philly last weekend and it was so hot. It was in the 90s and it was so hot it made me want to be like a scammer. Like I wanted to just start going to like Zillow open houses. Places I have no intention on putting an offer down on. Just to stand to the AC, be like, oh, 2.5 bath, okay. And we actually have a beautiful patio outside. No, I believe you. I can see it. I can see it through the door. I can see it. No, don't do that. Oh. Sometimes someone that you love very, very much, right? Someone you care about deeply comes to you with a problem. And this problem is something like weighing heavily on them, right? It's taking up all their mental space or anything. And you love this person, right? And they come to you and they're telling you their problem. They're trusting you with whatever it is. And while they're telling you their problem, you realize that it's boring. Don't do that. Don't be good people right now. We've all had somebody come to us, a brother, a sister, an aunt. Someone has come to us, and you, as they're telling you their problem, you're like, I don't give a shit about any of this. Like, why are they even telling me? I can't even help. What are they doing? This is ruining my Saturday. So sometimes someone that you love very, very much, deeply, comes to you with something serious to them that's a real problem, and it's boring. But somehow, overhearing a stranger's problem is always fascinating. I'll give you some examples. So a couple weeks ago, I was on the bus because life ain't going the way you think, right? And so I was on the bus, you know, the people's limousine, right? And I was on the bus and I was holding the rail and another guy next to me was holding the rail, but he had his phone like this, right? Like tucked into his arm. And he was just like, I don't know what to do, all right? I do not know what to do. She keep fucking dudes off Facebook Marketplace. Yes, yes. I'm in. Tell me all. Because this man's on his phone like, I can't even trust her to go get a lamp. A couple days later, I was also on the bus because once again, life could be better, right? We'll get there, but until then, community Uber, right? And as I got on, I sat down next to this guy. Now, this guy is being louder, out loud, than my AirPods can get in my ear. So I don't even feel like I'm eavesdropping now. He offering this up to the class, okay? And so he's putting his phone down when I sat down next to him, but he was, calls somebody else. And basically, he calls this next person and tells them that the person he just got off the phone with was a woman who he had been hooking up with, who just called him to tell him that she was pregnant and she was keeping the baby, all right? And I don't know the best place, but the bus is one of the worst places to find out you're gonna be a father, all right? The bus is top 3 bad places to find out you're gonna be a daddy, okay? It goes jail, the toilet, the bus, right? And so this man is like, talking on the phone, and then he goes, yeah, it's wild because we didn't even have sex this year. And I was like, oh no. He's gonna be a father. And they kept talking and they kept talking. Now, I can't hear the other person on the other side of the line or anything, but I can just hear the like I can hear that noise is happening, right? And so then they must have asked the question that was on my mind, which was, when was the last time y'all slept together? And it was like, yeah, I haven't even seen her, or like, we haven't hooked up since like August of last year. And I was like, uh-oh. He's not about to be a father. Like, no. Fellas, we gotta start learning at least a little bit about women's bodies. If nothing else, so we can't get fleeced like this. Like, this is... Because this man said, without stuttering, he was like, yeah, she's about 10 months along, right? I was like... Oh. And then they kept talking, they realized he actually did get the math wrong, right? The math was wrong. It was 11 months. And I was like, okay, so when do I step in now as a stranger, right? Like, when do I step up and step in to help? Because I've been missed my stop. I missed my stop. I missed my stop at 10 months, right? And so I'm at least 11 minutes that way, right? And so finally, I leaned over to him. I was like, hey, bro, I couldn't help but hear, we all heard. I couldn't help but hear, and I have good news and I have bad news. The good news is you're not about to be a father. The bad news is you should maybe never be a father. Ding! You also overhear wild stuff, like the heat changes people for real. Like there are things people do in the heat that they would not do otherwise. Like I was walking my dog, and in the background, like way down the street on the corner, I heard a little kid get into a fight with the ice cream man. Because once again, I'm walking my dog, and just in the distance I hear, nigga, it's a nickel. Even my dog was curious. Like, my dog and I both turned around. And the ice cream man was like, I don't care what it is, you short, little man. And this kid looked up, I don't know how old he was, looked up at the ice cream man, head can't reach the counter, and goes, your dick is short, I want my chocolate. How did we get here? How did these two individuals come together in this moment? Because one, who is this kid? But two, what happens in your life where you become an ice cream man that's really here to nickel and dime these kids? Like, that's really here to like actually buy actual nickels and dimes. Who says to themselves, you know what, I love passing out joy, but you know who needs to be taken down a peg? These children, okay? I'm trying to figure out what type of friend I am. You know, I think I'm a good friend to a certain degree. I feel like if I discover for myself the type of friend that I am, I'll be a better version of that friend to everybody, right? Because I'll know my limits, I'll know what I'm willing to do, what I'm not, and everything. And I'm quickly realizing that I am not the advice friend. Don't come to me. Truly, don't come to me at all, because my advice to you will be directly related to how your problem affects me. I'm trying to let everybody know that now, in case, because you know, you never know. Sometimes you meet someone at the show, y'all become friends in real life, and then maybe they have a problem and they come to me, they're like, Josh, what should I do? I'm telling you right now, I am not objective. I'm not the one, right? Like, for instance, I have a lot of friends that are getting married this summer into the fall, right? So the big wedding season and everything. And so a couple of my friends have come to me, right? And you just need to know, if you're having troubles are normal, right? People get cold feet. People fight a lot leading up to a wedding. The stress, people's families sometimes don't get along. That stress. You know what I mean? Like, all of it is normal. But if you come to me, my advice to you will be directly correlated to if I already bought the gift. Because I had a friend come to me, his wedding was about, 2 weeks out, he was devastated and everything, and he was a good friend, so I had already bought his gift off the registry. It was a Vitamix 3500, so it was, yes. See, exactly, yes. 100%, yes. And so I'd already got that Vitamix, and anytime a relationship seems shaky, I look up the return policy just in case. And this particular model, they didn't carry anymore, so he comes to me and he's upset and everything, going on, and I'm just looking at the receipt. And so finally, he looking at me to say something. I was like, dog, you love her. Like, she your moon, your stars, all that stuff. Like, everybody cheat, okay? She gonna stop probably, like. I had a different friend come to me, and this friend, the wedding was about like 2 days, like two days out, and my man comes to me, and his problem was very specific, deeply specific. Basically, his fiance and the wedding planner had planned out the whole wedding, pretty much top to bottom. They weren't really asking him for much, but then he was offering up. He was like, is there anything that you need me to do that I can take off your plate? And she was like, no, we got it. And he was like, well, there's got to be something. Like, I want to be involved somehow. And so then she told him that basically they had everything planned down to a T, but he could pick the place mat at the reception, right? Like the little place that, as long as it was in line with the color theme, he could pick that. And so then my buddy poured over for like several days all these like little different, you couldn't even tell the difference between them, all these different placemats and stuff, and was like trying to make a good decision on the right one and everything. And he finally picked one, and basically it seems like maybe she didn't like it because she had the wedding planner change it last minute. And then they didn't really talk about it. So his feelings were kind of hurt because he was like, oh, that was my one thing. And I took some real pride in doing it. And she didn't say anything to me. And it was a destination wedding and I hadn't bought my ticket yet. I hadn't bought my ticket and I hadn't got a gift yet. And so he was telling me about it and I was like, I wouldn't take that if I was you, dog. Like, for real. Sometimes you gotta put your foot down, all right? I've been watching some of the, like, older people in my life and everything, and it's crazy. My friend, his grandparents were together until his granddad passed away. And his granddad probably passed away at like 85 or something like that. But him and his grandmother got married young. So they were together for like 62 years or something like that. I mean, it was crazy. And people always want to know the sort of secrets to staying together and like having that sort of relationship, that bond. And, you know, he said that his grandma basically summed it all up very quickly. You know, she was like, if you want to be with somebody for the rest of your life, you have to know and accept that the first year is lust. The next 10 years are love. And everything else after that is spite. And she said spite without missing a beat. Like she's like, that's a secret ingredient. Like every day you wake up and you're like, we go to war. And basically, she tells this story about how the night that his grandpa passed away, they had this routine where his granddad pretty much wouldn't even sleep in the bed anymore. He would sleep in his chair that could recline like his lazy boy, and then he would be falling asleep watching TV or something like that. But on that night, he went to bed with his grandma and he passed away in his sleep. Which is how a lot of people want to go. It's very peaceful, you know, next to somebody you love. And then he wasn't there, but his mom was. And his mom said that when she woke up, she was getting ready and like making breakfast and stuff. And she heard his grandma from the room. And what she heard wasn't like some blood curdling scream or some like cry out or anything. She said she just heard, oh! What? Ooh. And she apparently even said at the funeral that, you know, so many people were coming up to her and telling her how sweet it was that he went to make sure he was laying in bed with her the night that he passed instead of like in his chair or something. And she was like, ain't nothing sweet about it. He did that on purpose. He knew. No, he knew he was gonna die that night. And he wanted to put his cold ass feet on me one more time. Because they were cold when they were cold when he was living, but then they were cold, right? And at a certain point, you get used to the cold, and then you turn around and he all. Just laying up there like. And I told him take out that trash, and he didn't do it.
Charleston, please make some noise for Josh Johnson!
I was talking to one of my friends, and he said that he knew, the first time he knew his neighborhood was broke was when the bank closed. It's a pretty good indicator. The bank holds that branch's money, and that branch is falling off. And said he went to the bank, and he basically just straight up asked the teller, he's like, "Hey, do you know why this branch is closing?" And she was like, "Are you here to make a deposit or a withdrawal?" And he was like, "Withdrawal." And she was like, "Yeah, that's why. That's it in a nutshell. That's exactly what's happening. You do enough of that, and then there is no bank. We're just kind of a building with a little bit of parking." I don't know. I look back at the ups and downs I've had in my life. I've been broke off and on my entire life, And there's a weird solace sometimes in being broke at the right time. Everyone thinks that the security is in having means and having money, but sometimes not being a part of the circus is its own solace in a weird way. You know that it's bad when you're really shopping at the dollar store. There are things anybody could use at the dollar store. You need a fly swatter, you might as well run up in the dollar store. You know what I mean? You need a dustpan, might as well run up in the dollar store. But if you're really shopping at the dollar store, things are not great. I would go in the dollar store for stuff you shouldn't even be buying from the dollar store. They sell it, but even the cashier look at you like, "You sure?" I'm talking about well, you have to get your meat at the dollar store. I knew I was in a bad situation when I went to a dollar store and was looking at that meat in the fridge, and I was like, Because the meat at the dollar store, they don't go into specifics. You go to Kroger, Walmart, you go to Target, you go to any of these places, and you'll see the brand of the meat, and then you'll see, all of the little no preservatives ever, completely organic, all the stuff. When you go to the dollar store and you buy your meat, it just says the price and it says meat. And you're like, maybe if I don't ask any questions, it can be whatever I think it is. Because then, I also got a lot of stuff at the dollar store, even as a kid, that I look back and I'm like, that probably wasn't the best. Like a good example, if you know, when you shop at a dollar store, especially if you ever got toys at the dollar store, the dollar store toys are in a very specific, slightly copyright infringed arena of toy. You would have a G.I. Joe, but it doesn't say G.I. Joe. It just says soldier. And you buy this soldier, and it even got the setup like a G.I. Joe, like it stands like a G.I. Joe, but the legs a little too short. So some very long arms. I couldn't tell if the arms were long or the legs were short. And it doesn't have like grip action. It says that on the front, grip action. It just has a hole. They didn't make a hand. They made a hole stub. And then this hole stub is what you go ahead and put the little toy gun through. But then they didn't really measure out the gun versus the hand. And so the gun is not in proportion at all. So it looked like this would blow his arm off if he tried to shoot it. But you bring it home and you're playing with it. And you're like, yeah, soldier, get him. And he's like, I'm gonna get him. Oh, I'm gonna get him. They getting it right now. Trust me. Trust me. Nah, they getting it. Look. Point me over here. Point me over here. No, it was terrible. It was very bad. It was horrible. You know, you would have those dollar store crayons. That's another one. It's a very specific type of drawing as a kid, because those dollar store crayons, they melt in your hand. So you got to be quick with it. You got some imagination. It needs to come out now. You got to put those crayons in the fridge. I remember being around some of these Crayola crayon kids being like, your crayon's stale as hell. Man, y'all don't even freshen up your crayons. That's crazy. That's why your pictures stink. You know what I mean? My pictures smell like leftovers. I remember one of my favorite toys from the dollar store was like a Stretch Armstrong, right? But it was Stretch Armstrong. It would only stretch for like 3 days. You only got 3 good days. After that, it would get hard. And if you tried to stretch it after it got hard, it would cut your finger open. I don't know what it was made of, but it was the most malleable, unmalleable thing. It was Play-Doh and adamantium together. No, it was crazy. And that's the thing too, is when you're growing up in this situation, for anyone who knows what I'm talking about from experience, then you also know that it's very hard to know that you're broke, especially if you're a kid. It's hard to know if you are surrounded by love. My family loved me so much, so much. They still do. I make it sound like that. Make it sound like there was a falling out. They still love me. But no, I was surrounded by love. I had my grandparents, and my mom, and my dad's love. I had my aunt, and my uncle's love. I had my cousin's love. I had so much love around me. And when you're surrounded by that much love, you don't know that you don't have money when you have that much love until you meet somebody who has both. That is a curious experience. Like when you're like, oh, you got both parents and a pool? Okay, I think there can be upgrades to life. I see that now. To me, greed is a paradox, because you want everything. Even if you have more than enough, even if you have so much that what you have is starting to hurt you in the long run. You see it with the way that hedge funds cannibalize whole companies. It's like, okay, everybody made some short-term profit, but now this thing that people used to love doesn't exist. You know? Like you take like a Southwest. You know, Southwest, people used to love Southwest. Bags fly free. Affordable tickets. You just sit wherever. You don't have to wait for the person. Southwest used to be so fire because then you don't have to wait for the person to get to their seat, and you don't have to get up for anybody. Do you know what it's like to just be in your seat on the plane? And everyone's almost here. There's a couple of stragglers. There's almost nobody coming down that aisle anymore. You even settle in. You're like, oh, I may not have a seat next to me. This may be the promised land. You get so comfortable, you're like, man, I might put my other leg over here. Southwest had a brilliant idea. And the bags. the bags were flying for free, which makes sense. The bags don't know where they're going. Why should I have to pay for this bag to have an experience too? You know? And then greed, and then private equity, and then hedge funds, and then, shareholder meetings, and then dividends. All the things start to creep in, and it's like, maybe we'll stop doing everything that is why everyone likes us. Maybe we'll just be like the other airlines. They make money, but then you actually look at the people who fly Southwest, and they were like, oh, y'all aren't nice enough to be like them, though. Like, your seat doesn't even go back like that. Why would I pay for everything here that I pay for over there? That's crazy. And so then you see people plummet, because they're making decisions based on money, but not money that they need, just more money that they might be able to get. And there's only there's only so much that a business can grow. I understand a startup's passion, and that passion makes sense because the company just started. But after a while, it's like, do you really need to own everything? If the answer is yes, it's like, and they don't say it to us. They say it to each other. You ever get a hold of a recording of a closed door meeting and the way they talk about their own customers? That's why greed is like a paradox to me. You're so greedy that then you end up cannibalizing your own company, your own efforts, yourself. You end up hurting yourself. American greed is another paradox, because as much as we know that the millionaires and billionaires maybe got their money in a way that's a little nasty, we also kind of want to be them a little bit. Everybody wants their piece, but we know how bad it is. There are people who I know who want to be billionaires. They aspire to be billionaires. But if you ask them to name like a good billionaire, it's a hard quiz. But they want to be the billionaire because they're like, no, I will be different. How? That to me is like a drug dealer saying, no, I'm gonna be different. Oh, how so? Oh, I'll only sell drugs to bad people. How will you know that they're bad people? Word will get around and they'll buy my drugs and I'll be like, that's a bad guy. No, it's not gonna be different just because it's you. That's the trick as well. No, it's different when I do it. It's different when it's me. It's different when it's for me. It's different when it's for my family. Right? So then you hear people talk about recession. That recession is coming, recession is looming. And to be fair, people have said that since the last recession. Every year, I'm not an economist, but every year there's somebody that's like, it's coming. Get ready, batten down the hatches. And so you're in this situation where, people are very worried, and understandably so. Because it's not really about the money. Money is mostly like the conduit. Money's mostly the placeholder. There are people who find money to be a game, and for them, the number is the important thing. How much actual money they can stack and hoard is the real thing. I want to show how rich I am is the real thing. But for almost everybody else, it's about their survival. It's about taking care of yourself. It's about taking care of the people that you love. So when they hear that there's going to be a recession, they're not really thinking like, oh, the number will go down. They're thinking about food. They're thinking about housing. They're thinking about resources. And the only way forward is with other people. We've proven that this thing doesn't work. And by this thing, I'm not just talking about like one specific system. I'm not talking about like capitalism. I'm not talking about anything like that. I'm talking about we've proven that a true rat race does not work. I can't believe the world watched Squid Game and was like, yeah, I think I could win the pot. The pot is the problem. You know? And then I think the other problem is that if you are pitted against people, if you're pitted against the other 330 so million Americans, then yeah, the odds look insurmountable. But when you see how many people are actually in your situation, and you see how many millions of people are just like you, and you put yourself on the same side as them, all of a sudden, all of the weight, it gets a little bit easier. You know? There are people around the world that will never have access to the things that we have access to that make it work. And so sometimes we stress, oh, how am I going to make it work? And it's like the number one way is through community. Your future is your neighbor. There's no other way forward. And I know that can be scary. That's an idea where you have to lay down so much trust at the feet of people that you don't know. That's very scary, because I've had good neighbors and I've had bad neighbors. I've had very bad neighbors. I had a neighbor who stole my trash can. It's the trash can. You could just put your trash in there too. Stole my trash can and lived next to me like I'm not gonna notice my trash can. And he was big too, and I'm pretty sure he sold drugs, so I wasn't gonna take my trash can back. But I was like, I will put my trash in my trash can over here though. Just because you stole the trash can doesn't mean I'm gonna get another trash can. It's a trash can, and trash goes in. You could have put your trash over here, but then you wanted to put it in front of your yard. Okay, fine, whatever. I'm sure you have a gun, so I won't make a big deal of it. But I've had bad neighbors, and I've also had incredibly kind, incredibly sweet neighbors. I had neighbors that made any transition period I've been having in my life easier. I remember when I moved to Chicago and I was living in my first apartment, I had a neighbor that knocked on my door. I had been living there for like 2 days, and I didn't have stuff. I'm like this broke kid who just moved to Chicago with like 2 suitcases of like clothes and a couple of other things. And so knocks on my door and it's like, hey, this older guy. And he's like, hey, I saw that you moved in. If you need anything or you have any questions about the building, just hit me up. I live right there. And I'm thinking he's like the building manager or something. So I'm like, oh yeah, what's your name? And we get to talking a little bit. And as we're talking, I realize he doesn't work for the building at all. This dude is literally just checking on me for the sake of checking on me. And he's like, if you need anything, because I saw, you were having a little trouble, I couldn't have caught up to you, but I was gonna help you up and everything. And I was like, oh, thank you, man. And we didn't see each other often. And I remember the day that I moved out, because I ran into him again. I ran into him and his wife. And he was like, man, I'm sorry to see you go. Because I can tell, we never really got to chop it up or anything, but I could tell that I like the way you move. And you didn't cause any trouble. You were just cool. And I wish I would have knocked on your door a couple more times, right? I never forgot about that guy, because even knowing that there was someone there if I was having a problem, it just made living there on my own a little bit easier. Just in the back of my head. Once again, we didn't even have that many interactions. I only knocked on his door a couple times. And the couple of times I knocked on his door, he needed help too. There was one time where we had in our building a chute for the laundry that nobody used. Nobody ever used it because it's not like it was one person. Do you know what I mean? Like, the chute for, this isn't Eloise. Like, it's weird that there was a chute for the laundry because it just went to the floor down there, and you'd have to go down there to wash your own clothes anyway. So I guess if you wanted to save yourself the weight of the trip, you could push all the clothes down and let them get nice and nasty, and then slip through the chute and then hit the ground, and now It's got different stuff on it than the reason that you're washing it. So nobody used it. And nobody used it because it was nasty. And so then one day, the actual building manager poured a whole bunch of like bug poison down it to try to like kill some of the bugs that had been living in there. And the bugs were like, you know what? I think we'll go everywhere else. And so then one day I came home and my apartment was just overrun with bugs, and it didn't make sense because I didn't even have stuff. I had a fork, a bowl, like it was kind of like a saucer. It wasn't a plate. It was a plate that you would put a teacup on. I didn't even have dishes to be nasty enough to have all these bugs. So I'm freaking out. I'm killing a bunch of bugs, and then I run over and I knock on his door, and when I open his door, he looks like me. He's like, you too? And both of us just knowing that we're both dealing with bugs was enough to make the whole thing easier. He helped me kill some of my bugs. I helped him kill some of his bugs. And we were both very upset with the building manager. I had another neighbor when I was living this like short little bit in this, I don't even know how to describe it. It was like, it was a house, but it was like, you know how there's it wasn't a duplex. Okay. The house I was living in was like perfectly split in two, right? To make two unlivable houses. Okay? So I wasn't staying there for long, but it was just two completely unlivable houses, right? And I had a neighbor that lived next to me where I moved in, and once again, this older lady, so sweet as could be, knocks on my door, and it's like, hey, I saw that you just moved in. She had baked something, like old school, like out of the movies. She had baked something. She was like, I made you a little some muffins. I know moving is hard. I know sometimes you don't have anything to eat right after you move. So this is for you, right? And I was like, oh, I didn't even know what to do. I was like, oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And she was like, yeah, I like to help people get their bearings. And just so you know, I just want to be the one to tell you so you don't have to find out on your own. There's a crackhead in the wall. And when you get that type of warning, it does make you look at the muffins twice. One has nothing to do with the other. But I was still like, oh. And she was like, yeah, we thought it was a bird for a long time. And then he started talking. And so if you hear anything in the middle of the night, just pound on the wall a couple times and he'll stop. I was like, okay. All right. Okay. And I closed the door and I sat in silence for the rest of the night. Waiting to hear a noise that would never come. It wasn't until like months later I heard some scratching in the wall, and I was like, how does somebody just live with it? And so I knocked on her door, and she came to the door. She was like, you hear him too. And I was like, look, I know you lived here longer than me, but in case it is a bird, maybe we should call animal control. Just throwing it out there, right? And she's like, you can do what you want. I called animal control, and then they could hear the scratching too. And then they went ahead and went on the roof, and they said that they found a slight hole in the roof, and turns out it was a bird. It had been a bird the entire time, And I'm pretty sure it was a bird when she heard it, but maybe she just had the TV on. Maybe she was like, he's talking. Animal control leaves with the bird. I go over, I tell her it was a bird, animal control called the bird, and she was like, thank you so much. Seriously, thank you so much. That has been happening for like 8 months. Off and on, and I was positive it was a crackhead. And I guess that's what a good neighbor does. I guess a good neighbor lets you know nobody's in your wall. Because I think fundamentally the toughest thing people are facing right now is like a true way forward where they can trust other people to help them and take care of them. And I can't tell you to just blindly put your faith in people that you don't know, even if they live next to you. But what I can tell you is that most people return energy. Most people give like for like. So if there's a community that you want around you, all you have to do is be its founder. If you are the one knocking on your neighbor's door, letting them know you're here, if they need anything, they'll probably do the same for you. And it's so simple to build community. It's so much more likely that you're gonna build community than you're gonna become a billionaire. Do you know what I mean? Like, both things are incredibly hard to do. They take a lot of hard work and everything, and one of them means everyone will hate you. Because when you're broke as well, the thing that happens, I think, the most often is that we have a real misunderstanding of each other. Rich people, the rich people that I've met in my life, no rich person I know feels rich. They feel comfortable. Now, they'll do whatever it takes to maintain their level of comfort, but they don't feel rich. They're like, no, I'm just comfortable. I'm just chilling. And you show them how much they make, and they're like, yeah, I got to maintain, I got kids, And then you show them how much the rest of the world makes, and they're like, ooh. Okay, maybe we don't tell anybody how much I make. And the same thing, when you're broke, there's a genuine misunderstanding around the decisions that people make when they're poor, around the way that people think, because there's not the possibility of thinking past tomorrow, because you're not even sure you're going to get there. Do you know what I mean? When you really don't have means, when you really don't have money, you come off wild sometimes because all your requests are strange, because you're just trying to piece things together just so you can make it to the next day. Like a good example is I used to work at a grocery store, and one time in the break room, we're eating our lunch, and this one dude opened his lunch and then just said out loud to everybody, hey, I made a hamburger at home, but oof, does anybody have a top bun? Sir. They're always sold even. How did this happen? We look at money as paper, right? At least when it's in its physical form, it's this paper thing. But it's more than paper. There's fabric weaved into it. There's linen, there's cotton. It works the same way that society works. There's fabric that weaves all of us together. And there are people who have not been able to participate in the opportunities of making money or making their well-being out of these chances in the market the way that other people have. And so when you tell them that a recession is coming, they're like, oh, a what? Okay. I was already broke. Do you know what I mean? What is a recession to somebody who was on the street the whole time? I guess the best example I can give is one time I was at a party with my friends, and I fell in the pool. And falling in the pool at a party is one of the more embarrassing things you can do when it's not a pool party. If you fall in the pool at a party where people are just sort of standing around the pool and talking, you might as well have fallen off the roof. But I fell into the pool at the party, which is not just embarrassing, it's not just annoying, because out now all my clothes are wet and everything. It's terrifying because I can't swim. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a swimmer in the way that I would like to be, and the way that I would like to be is to be able to survive. And so when it comes to swimming, I'm not only not a fan, I'm not efficient. And so I get in the water, and when you don't swim, and I don't just mean can't swim, I'm saying when you don't swim, like for fun or anything, being surrounded by water out of nowhere is very concerning. I didn't realize I had stepped into the pool until I was in the pool. So now what I feel like has happened is that I turned around and water surrounded me. And so I start doing what I think swimming is innately. I start fighting the water, right? I'm punching and I'm kicking and I'm like, get off me, water, but I'm in the water. But I'm like, get back, I don't want you over here. And that's not how water works. And so I'm sifting through the water, and it's almost like swimming, except I'm staying in place underneath it. So that is drowning. That's what drowning is. When you're swimming perfectly, but you're not going up above and you can't get your head up, you're not actually swimming, you're drowning, and it's also exhausting. You're fighting and you're punching, you're kicking, and you're moving, and you're doing a pretty good job of drowning. If you could get your head above water, this would be swimming. And if you could get your chest up, if you could do that butterfly thing, now you're a swimmer. But I am over here, no more water. Get out of my face, right? So then it takes someone pulling me out of the water for me not to actually drown. And not right after, not soon enough after, but pretty soon after, we leave the party. And not as soon as you would like if you almost drowned. You know what I mean? Like and it's tough too, because like the dude saved you as your ride. So now he's doing you two favors, you know? So then, you know, man saves me, and my buddy pulls me out of the water, and now, you know, we stay an extra 20 minutes because now he's got his MAC points for saving a life in front of everybody, you know? That's what most embarrassing. The only thing more embarrassing than like showing a whole party full of people you can't swim is to be sitting there wet while the person that saved you tries to mac on somebody. Just like, yeah, you know, I do what I can. I do what I try to help out the people, you know, and doing my best. And it's like, also, my man didn't. Look, I'm not necessarily trying to give notes on being saved, but like, my man did jump in the pool and grab me and lift me up and swim me to the shore of the edge of the pool, right? This man just stuck his arm in and kept clawing at me until he got the back of my shirt. That's barely saving. Like, when I tell you that I'm over here, stop it, water, no, I don't want any more. And then he is over here, bow, and he missed like 8 times. So he was punching me in the head while trying to save my life. And he finally hooks his hand behind my collar and pulls me up the way that a cat sort of lifts its kitten in its mouth. You know what I mean? Just sloppy. And then I'm also still fighting. I don't know what's pulling me up, so I don't know if that's more drowning. I don't know what the effects of drowning feel like. So now I'm not necessarily fighting his hand, but I am still fighting the water. And so if you were on the other side of the pool, it does look like I was drowning. He reached in, dunked me one more time just to be safe. and then pull me up. Because I don't know that he's trying to help me. But when he finally pulls me up and I'm over here coughing up the water and everything, this man helps me get up out of the pool and then immediately sees the eyes on him and everything, sees the opportunity, and he's like, oh, yeah, you know. I do what I can. Also, I know he saved my life and everything, but also the fact that he didn't need to roll his sleeves up like that. Like that was even more just worth like, oh yeah, you know, I tried. Now you sitting here wet, just like, can you wrap it up, get the number or don't? And so then me, him, and some other friends head to his car once he's ready to leave, and his car won't start. Waited for nothing. Now, luckily, we were staying at his house, and luckily he did live close enough to the party that we could walk. It was like maybe, I don't know, like a mile and some change. It wasn't crazy. And so we start walking. As we start walking, it starts drizzling. And then it's drizzling a little bit more, drizzling a little bit harder, and then it really starts raining. And when it starts raining, all my friends did a different thing when it was raining. Like, I had one friend that did the turtle. Just walking and just trying to... And I get it, because he has some deep collarbones. He would have had 2 lakes on either side of his neck if he had just let the water hit. That would have been 2 puddles he had to carry. So I understand him trying to... And then I had another friend who was over here doing this, which genuinely pissed me off. That's one of the craziest things I've seen. You have 2 hands, one hand covering some of your head, but not even efficiently. Where's the distance management here? You'd be better putting the hand on your head. And then I had another friend who just decided to lean forward, because I guess he just doesn't want a wet front. He's just cool with it all hitting the back. And as it's raining and raining, my friend was over here doing this, turns to me, because I'm just walking. I'm not doing any of this. I'm just walking normal. And they're like, oh, John, you must not mind the rain. And I was like, I almost drowned 20 minutes ago. And that's what it's like when you're broke. You're almost drowning all the time. So when people try to scare you with talks of a recession, you're like, why would I? What? You're doing this. I'm already wet. And the way to ensure that you're going to be okay, the way to ensure that your family is going to be okay, is by creating chains, by linking up together with other people, with other families. Because the way forward, your future, I guarantee you, it's not in the market. There's a belief that, like, if I can just get enough ahead, maybe I'll pull some other people with me. And that sort of thinking is the reason that we as the people can be taken advantage of so easily when it comes to money. It's like, I can get you a little bit ahead. Oh, I'd like to be a little bit ahead, right? But the way forward, your future, I promise you it's in your neighbor. I promise you, there's no one that's going to take care of you like the people that are actually next to you. And it's kind of daunting to me. It does freak me out a little bit that there are so many people, every election, every year, no matter who's president, that expect the person in office to make them rich. Don't you know this is America? Do you know what I mean? Like, that's just not how it works. It's not how it's ever worked. You may like the person in office, you may not, but I guarantee you they're not gonna make you rich. That's not how anything works. And don't get me wrong, I've had dreams before. I had a hard time getting to know people, and I had a hard time communicating with people. I'm an only child, and my mom wanted me to have friends so I wouldn't be crazy. And so as a single parent with one kid, my mom, the only thing she knew how to do was go ahead and take me over to her other single parents, friends' houses where they had one kid. And she was like, maybe y'all will just play and not be crazy together. And sure enough, there was a time in my life where my parents got back together, and so we were a 2-income household, so I started to get the good toys, right? The real good toys. I'm talking WCW, NWO, wrestling toys, Sting, Goldberg, Kevin Nash. And sure enough, you know, I remember I got those toys. Those are some of my favorite toys in the world because I didn't know ankles had come out yet. I would hold up my Kevin Nash and I'd be like, bow, 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 bow. Look what he does. Bow, 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 bow. He had knees, he had ankles, he could do this. That's crazy. I was used to this only. Maybe if you were getting fancy, some of this, but I wasn't used to this. This thing right here, this is crazy. Real shoulder movement? My mind was blown. It's like, look at what this thing can do. Bow, 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 right? And so then my mom took me over to her friend's house, and her friend had a kid, and you know, I went ahead and brought over 2 of my toys. I brought my Kevin Nash and I brought my Sting because I'm trying to make a good impression. And so we're talking, they're talking, and finally we go to his room to play, and my mom leaves to go run some errands or something. And I quickly realized after my mom left that he was crazy. He was genuinely crazy because all of his toys, every single one of his toys, didn't have a face. None of his toys had faces. I don't know if he was chewing them or if he was burning them, but they were gone. And so he looked at my Sting toy and he was like, oh, we have the same one. And I was like, I don't see how that's possible. I don't see how that's possible. And then sure enough, this kid pulls out his Sting toy, and I know we have the same toy because the Sting had the jacket. The jacket you could put on, you could take off and everything. And so we're playing, and I'm trying to be a collaborative new friend, right? I'm like, what do you want to do? You want to do Legos? You want to do like wrestlers, whatever? And then we decide Legos. So I was like, do you want to build a castle? You want to build a wall? What do you want to do? So we decide to build a castle, right? And then this kid, we're halfway through the castle, maybe 100 pieces to go. And this kid grabs the castle, lifts it up, throws it against the wall. It explodes into like 190,000 pieces. And I'm like, what did you do that for? And he goes, don't talk to me. And I was like, oh man, yeah, chill, Satan, chill, okay? Back up, devil, okay? Because I had been prepared in case the situation happened, because I knew I wasn't a crazy only child, but I knew there were other crazy only children out there. So I already had my thing on me, right? I had that lance in my back pocket. I was like, don't you come near me. I will cut you open. This thing is 6 weeks old.